Chapter 51 Showing Talent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nonsense, I clearly saw you hurting him. Allison, who was so hot-blooded, couldn't hear it and stared at Rhaegar with hatred. Rhaegar smiled sarcastically. If I really want to hurt him, you won't have time to hold him in your arms and breastfeed him. There was a wet feeling in front of his chest. Allison subconsciously covered his chest and lowered his head to see that his nightgown was wet. Not only were there tears and snot from Aegon, but there was also emotional leakage. Rhaegar pulled a cloak and threw it to her, turned around and said, "If you don't educate your son well, I, as the elder brother, have the right to discipline him." I only believe my own eyes. Allison glared at him bitterly, picked off Aegon's head, wiped the dirt from his face, and asked, "Aegon, tell mother, did he hurt you?" Aegon sobbed hard and turned his head to look at Rhaegar in horror, his body trembling, and he didn't dare to open his mouth. Rhaegar shrugged and raised his eyebrows proudly. Allison gritted his teeth and gave Aegon a big slap in the face, scolding, "Wake up, Aegon. Tell mom quickly, did Rhaegar hurt you?" At the end of the sentence, his voice was extremely sharp. Aegon was stunned for a moment after being beaten, his face quickly swelled with a slap mark, and he said stupidly, "He beat me, and he also used fire to burn me." Rhaegar frowned slightly when he heard this and stared at him unkindly. "You bastard, you dare to add fuel to the fire." With his son's testimony, Allison completely exploded and said angrily, "Did you hear that? Aegon said you beat him, and I also saw you scalding him with a red-hot bracelet. What did he do to offend you to make you hurt him like this?" Faced with Allison's questioning, Rhaegar was speechless. Just think of her as a spoiler. Seeing Rhaegar's silence, Allison's eyes filled with resentment, thinking that he was being dismissive. Just as he was about to yell and curse, there were rapid footsteps in the corridor. Rhaegar raised his head and saw Harold, captain of the Kingsguard, coming with Viserys on his arm. Rhaenyra, disheveled, followed. Viserys resisted the dizziness, glanced at the three people in the cabin, and said weakly, "What's going on, making endless noises here in the middle of the night?" Seeing her husband coming, Allison burst into tears and cried bitterly, "Look at Aegon, if I hadn't arrived in time, he would have been tortured to death by Rhaegar." Aegon was not stupid and cried loudly along with his mother. For a moment, everyone looked at the mother and son who were hugging each other and crying. A flash of suspicion flashed in Viserys' eyes. He looked at Rhaegar and said in a deep voice, "Rhaegar, is what your mother said true?" "She's not my mother, just a stepmother. The two sides have reached a confrontation, and Rhaegar is too lazy to be conciliatory," and his words are full of denials of Allison. His biological mother had long since died in childbirth. Allison is just a stepmother who covets her sister's heir qualifications. He has long been dissatisfied with it. "Shut up, even if Allison is your stepmother, she is still fulfilling the duties of a mother and taking care of your daily life. You must respect her." Viserys scolded his eldest son for his disrespectful behavior. Rhaegar opened his mouth to say that it was the squire who took care of him, but when she thought about Allison being the queen, the credit still had to fall on her, so she had the sensibilities to keep her mouth shut. Seeing her brother's indignant look, Rhaenyra changed the subject. "Rhaegar, what's going on? Why does Her Majesty the Queen say you bully Aegon?" Her choice of words was interesting, swapping torture for bullying. In her heart, Rhaegar was a good, obedient and sensible boy who would never do anything torturing. Allison naturally heard the meaning of her words and immediately retorted, "He is a devil. He burned Aegon with a red-hot steel bracelet." Upon hearing this, Viserys noticed the reddish steel bracelet in Rhaegar's hand and said in surprise, "Rhaegar, the bracelet in your hand." He was unmistakable. That bracelet must be made of red-hot steel. Rhaegar grabbed the steel bracelet with his bare hands, shocking his old father. It was only after Viserys mentioned it that the others discovered this, including Alysanne, who had confronted Rhaegar early in the morning. He had just turned a corner, facing everyone's stunned expressions. Rhaegar casually said, "After the burn is healed, my ability to withstand flames has greatly improved." "Look, I said he is a devil. How can anyone not be afraid of fire?" Alysanne seemed to have grabbed hold of him, hugging Aegon tightly in fear and yelling. However, no one agreed except her. Viserys even recovered from his seasickness and immediately said, "Captain Harold, go block the corridor and keep others away." Harold nodded immediately and couldn't bear to look away from Rhaegar before leaving. There was only one family left in the cabin, breathing heavily. Viserys asked again. Rhaegar, don't you feel pain? No, it's just a little hot. Rhaegar didn't lie. Since being burned by the dragon flames, the effect of blood and fire source seems to have been strengthened. Ordinary flames would hardly harm him. Now he is holding the red-hot steel bracelet in his hand. Except for the palm of his hand being a little warm, there are no blisters. Viserys was greatly shocked, staring at Rhaegar as if looking at a rare treasure, unable to conceal his excitement. It seems that the dragon flame inspired your ancient bloodline and gave you the ability to be fearless of fire. As an ancient family, Targaryen has recorded many talented people in its long history. During the ancient Valyrian period, the Dragon King families worshipped pyromancers. A few people with Dragon King blood can learn magic, although there is no ancestor of the Targaryen family who is not afraid of fire. Viserys believes that this is part of the ability given by blood, just like their family's motto, blood and fire come from the same source. Rhaegar didn't explain too much and acquiesced to his father's reverie about him. His ability cannot be concealed for a lifetime. Only by showing it appropriately can he be more accepted by others. Watching the father and son talking, Alicent looked anxious and interrupted. Viserys. Rhaegar heard Aegon, you have to make the decision for him. That she saw Rhaegar persecute his children. Her children are her spiritual support. She would never allow anyone to bully her children. Viserys' excited expression calmed down, and he carefully looked at the embarrassed Aegon, and saw that there was a red and swollen slap mark on his face, and his face was a little ugly. Then he looked at Rhaegar and said with hatred, he is your brother, why did you beat him? He bullied Helena and wanted to steal the bracelet I gave him, but I caught him. Rhaegar told the truth and pointed at Aegon's face in a funny way. The most serious injury on his body was not caused by me. Aegon was so frightened by his finger that he trembled, clutching his mother's arms tightly and not daring to show his head. Viserys thought about it and found that the slap mark on Aegon's face was indeed not something that Rhaegar of the same age could have made. He walked up to Alicent, took Aegon's hand, and said sternly, Aegon, look into father's eyes. Aegon was frightened to tears. Alicent quickly shook him and said through gritted teeth, your father makes the decision for you, show your backbone. If you really have the guts, go and give Rhaegar a beating, just like when you bully a little girl. Rhaenyra spoke coldly, with unabashed sarcasm. Helena always wanted to play with Rhaegar, and she knew why. Because of her status. Rhaenyra was particularly disgusted with Aegon, who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Of course I have to speak for my younger brother, be sure to catch up when reading the book. The more you vote monthly, the more authors will have more creative ideas, thanks to Home Men, and a digital book friend for the 100-point reward respectively, thanks to a digital book friend for tipping me 200 points. Chapter 52 Pick it up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rhaenyra, shut up. Viserys scolded loudly and turned to communicate with Aegon again. Tell me, did you bully Helena? Yes. Aegon was so frightened that he forgot to cry and responded submissively. Rhaegar beat you because of this? Yes. He used the burning steel bracelet to scare you, but it didn't hurt you? Yes. Under his father's authority, Aegon did not dare to lie and answered the question honestly. Viserys touched the red and swollen side of Aegon's face, glanced at Alicent's palm, and everything became clear in his heart. Alicent, the way Rhaegar taught Aegon was indeed inappropriate, but in my opinion, it's not to the extent you said. Viserys said quietly. Alicent was dissatisfied with this interrogation-like questioning and said stubbornly, if no one comes to stop him tonight, who knows what Rhaegar will do to him. But Aegon wasn't burned. Rhaegar didn't do that. Viserys scolded in a low voice, glaring at her in displeasure. Alicent wanted to say more, but Viserys interrupted directly. Fighting between brothers is common, and it was the same with Daemon in the past. Did you push Daemon into a corner and make him cry with fear? Alicent hugged Aegon and stared at her husband. Her father had said long ago that Rhaenyra would not let her children go when she came to the throne. She didn't believe it then. Now it seems that it is very possible. Rhaegar was already ready to make a move before Rhaenyra took action. Viserys grabbed his hair irritably, helped Alicent up from the ground, tried his best to control his temper, and said softly, that's it for tonight. My dear. Rhaegar must apologize to Aegon and promise not to threaten him again in the future. Alicent is well aware of the character of her husband and Sheeny, and she must seize the opportunity to fight for justice for her children. Viserys hesitated and looked back at Rhaegar and Rhaenyra. He lowered his head and muttered, "Both children are at fault, let them apologize to each other." The reason was that Aegon bullied his sister. He came first. Alicent said nothing and looked at Aegon in his arms. Aegon looked messy and glanced timidly at Rhaegar. It took him a long time to muster the courage to close his eyes and shout, "I'm sorry, brother." "Very well, it's Rhaegar's turn." Viserys raised his hand for Rhaegar to cooperate. Rhaegar's eyes were like water, and he suddenly smiled. "I accept your apology and apologize for my rude behavior. I should not have scared you like this." He didn't want to embarrass his father, so it didn't matter if he cooperated with Alicent, who loved his son so much. Viserys smiled reluctantly at Alicent and suggested, "It's very late, let the children go back to rest." Alicent nodded and said no more. She wanted justice, but Aegon was just too frightened to pursue it any further. Viserys turned to go out, Alicent holding Aegon's hand. "I thought things were about to come to an end." Unexpectedly, Rhaegar suddenly said, "Aegon, don't you like the bracelet? Take it away." Viserys turned around and saw Rhaegar, who was expressionless. He dropped the hot steel bracelet in his hand on the floor in front of Aegon. Aegon was startled and quickly backed away for fear of being hit. Viserys became angry and shouted, "Rhaegar, it's over." Rhaegar said calmly, "I know, but Aegon likes bracelets, and I promised to give them to him." As he spoke, Rhaegar stared into Aegon's eyes, pointed to the bracelet on the floor, and said seriously, "Pick it up and take it away." "No. I can't pick it up." Aegon shook his head repeatedly, shrank into Alicent's arms, and looked at Rhaegar in fear. "It belongs to you, you have to take it with you." "I don't want it anymore, I really don't want it, and I won't in the future." Rhaegar didn't care whether Aegon would beg for mercy or not. His voice became colder. "Pick it up, I'll let you pick it up." "No, I don't want." Seeing Aegon being frightened and confused, Alicent's expression gradually collapsed and he stared at Viserys without saying a word. Those tear-filled eyes seemed to say, "Did you see that? Your good son dared to persecute Aegon in front of you." The situation was about to get out of control. Rhaenyra took out a handkerchief, soaked it in water, folded it, wrapped it around the bracelet, and stuffed it into Aegon's hand. Then he said worriedly to Rhaegar, "Stop it, Rhaegar." Glancing at his sister who was thinking about him, Rhaegar's cold eyes thawed and he joked, "It's such a simple thing, how could Aegon not be able to do it?" Following the words and deeds of the two siblings, the tense atmosphere in the cabin relaxed, but everyone knows that the balance of this family has been broken. Viserys looked at Rhaegar with complicated eyes before walking out of the hatch alone. Alicent snatched the wet handkerchief from Aegon's hand. Before leaving, he cried and choked, "Remember your promise, I will keep Aegon away from you." Rhaegar watched her leave with dull eyes. Alicent obviously has a prejudice against him. No matter how he explains it, it is all quibbles in his eyes, too lazy to say anything more. After they left, Rhaegar and Rhaenyra were the only ones left in the cabin. Rhaenyra closed the cabin door, leaned against the door and crossed her arms, sighing, "Who provoked you to lose such a temper?" "I was just trying to scare Aegon," Rhaegar said helplessly. In Alicent's eyes, it's not as simple as scaring someone. "What can I do? She happened to catch me and she insisted that I was plotting to kill Aegon." Seeing her brother's tired look, Rhaenyra's heart softened and she stepped forward to embrace him, stroking her silver hair. "Don't mind your own business in the future. Alicent is a lioness who protects her cubs. So, since we don't have a mother, we are inferior to others?" "You know, that's not what I meant. There is no difference. A cub that loses the protection of a lioness will have to grow fangs and claws faster." Rhaegar pushed away his sister's hand stroking her hair and fell back on the bed depressedly. His original intention was to vent his anger on Helena, but he was treated like a villain by Alicent, who preyed on her with the word maternal love. Isn't it just bullying him that he has no mother? If he couldn't stand Alicent's protective attitude, he wouldn't embarrass Aegon again. "Okay, don't be angry, I will sleep with you in my arms tonight." How could Rhaenyra not understand what her brother was thinking? She kneaded his right hand lovingly and lay on her side next to him, she felt that Rhaegar's hand did not change, it didn't look like he had touched red-hot steel. "You are truly different, Rhaegar." "Oh." Rhaegar was not interested in chatting at all, so he took off his clothes and pulled up the quilt. Rhaenyra said no more, just patted his back and hummed a ballad, like humming to the comatose Rhaegar as a child. The night passed, the sailboat rides the wind and waves and reaches the throat area. On the deck, Rhaenyra held Rhaegar's hand and looked at the sea, telling what she had seen. The sea area under the jurisdiction of King's Landing is Blackwater Bay. After sailing for a day and a night, we are about to enter the throat area. "Do you know what throat means?" Coming out to relax, Rhaegar said, "The throat is the entrance and exit of Blackwater Bay, and it is as important as the throat." "That's right, the throat is surrounded by 3 fortresses, Dragonstone Island, Tidal Head Island, and Sharp Point, forming a maritime defense line that can withstand thousands of troops." Rhaenyra pointed to the cliff of a giant island in the distance and introduced, "That's Tidehead Island, the family fiefdom of Lord Corlys, the Sea Serpent. Please give me monthly votes and follow up. The work is a young seedling, don't let it go." Chapter 53 Dragonstone Island. You are listening at novelfull.audio. House Velaryon. Rhaegar became slightly interested. Rhaenyra smiled and said, "Yes, a family that is proficient in voyages and has been friends with our family for generations. I heard that Lord Sea Snake is not a fuel-efficient lamp, which makes my father very distressed." Lei Jia had something to say. "These are all issues caused by the previous generation over inheritance rights. Our trip also has the purpose of reconciling with the Velaryon family." Rhaenyra did not want her brother to be biased and reveal some of her secrets. Rhaegar wondered, the Velaryon family is not as powerful as the Targaryen family, so why should they take the initiative to seek peace? This is something for a king to consider. Rhaenyra tugged at his nose, her voice dissatisfied. As an heir with no real power, how could she know what her father's concerns were? Rhaegar pondered, "It is very dangerous for the Velaryon family to ride our dragons." Rhaenyra was startled when she heard this, and said in astonishment, "That's because of Aunt Rhaenys." "Only Aunt Rhaenys then?" "The sun is high in the sky, the sailboat is anchored in the waters under the jurisdiction of Dragonstone Island." The guards paddled 2 small boats and carried the group onto the beach. At the end of the voyage, Viserys breathed a sigh of relief and liked the solid feeling of stepping on the soft sand. "Your Majesty, the castle has prepared sumptuous food and wine." The acting city lord of Dragonstone Island led his attendants to wait for a long time, then respectfully saluted and said hello. Upon hearing about the banquet, Viserys smiled, "Very good, that's what I meant." He called his wife and children to come forward, trying to use words and smiles to ease the rift. Last night, Alicent followed with his children on his right side, while Rhaegar and his sister walked on the left hand in hand. The 2 sides are clearly divided. The acting city lord of Dragonstone Island saw this scene and opened the topic with a wink. "This is the first time for the little prince and princess to visit the island. Do you need me to introduce them?" Rhaegar didn't even look at him and said, "My sister is the princess of Dragonstone." Rhaenyra squeezed his hand to signal him to stop talking nonsense. The acting city lord was slightly embarrassed, but Rhaenyra came to his rescue. "Lord Robert, please explain this to my brothers and sisters." "As you command, princess." Robert nodded slightly and kept smiling. Dragonstone is a huge island with rugged rocks and few crops. But because there is an active volcano on the island, it is very suitable for dragons to live. This adult looks very serious on the surface, but in fact he is a talkative person. Although no one paid any attention to him, he was still mumbling endlessly. Viserys shook his head and laughed, with only Rhaenyra chatting with him from time to time. Passing by the majestic cliff, a dark city gate carved with dragon patterns appeared in front of it. Lord Wood stopped talking and shouted to the towers stationed on both sides of the city gate. The pitch-black city gate slowly opened, revealing before Rhaegar's eyes a winding staircase stretching for miles, paved on a high mountain leading directly to a giant castle on the top of the mountain. It was a behemoth built entirely of black stone and planned and built in the image of a giant dragon. Behind the city gate, a team of tall and straight guards stood on each side. As the door opened, a chorus shouted greetings to Viserys. The majestic momentum rushed towards Rhaegar, which shocked Rhaegar quite a bit. Viserys led the way up the bridge. Like stone steps, it was obvious that he was very satisfied with the reception. Lord Robert began to chatter again. The castle on Dragonstone was built during the ancient Valyrian period as a stronghold in Westeros. Thanks to the stone civilization of the ancient Valyrian period, the entire castle is cast from black stone, and the exterior design of the castle is completed with technology that is currently unachievable. From a distance, it looks like an ancient dragon crouching on the top of a mountain, looking at the continent of Westeros. Rhaegar listened very carefully this time. The dragon-shaped castle on Dragonstone Island and the long steps at your feet are indeed astonishing creations. After walking for a while, we finally entered the castle. The entire hall is dominated by black and red colors, which is in line with the aesthetics of the Targaryen family. I simply washed my hands and took my seat formally. When the food was almost ready, Viserys rubbed his belly with satisfaction, sipped the wine and asked, "I passed the Raven to you, how are you doing on Dragonstone?" Lord Robert reported, "Your Majesty, the volcano on the island spewed lava 2 days ago, which alarmed Vermisser and Silverwing. Fortunately, they did not hurt anyone and quickly returned to their lair. As long as nothing happens, I can prepare to help my 2 sons train the dragon tomorrow." Viserys said with a smile. Lord Robert shook his head and wondered, due to this commotion, the 2 young dragons that were guarded in advance have all gone into hiding and are still looking for their traces. Hearing this, Viserys' face instantly became ugly. He put down his wine glass and stared at Robert questioningly. "Both 2 young dragons are missing. What do the dragons and dragon guards on the island do for food?" Robert lowered his head, like a child who made a mistake, and apologized, "I'm really sorry. The young dragons were originally very quiet, and they were released on Dragonstone Island, which made us too lax. A mistake is a mistake. Lord Robert is very good about this and does not shirk responsibility." Viserys' eyes widened angrily, and his newly filled belly seemed even bigger. He said angrily, "Find the young dragon as soon as possible. It also takes time for the princes to establish contact with the young dragon." "Yes, your merciful majesty." Lord Robert bowed repeatedly and rushed to find the young dragon as if he were running away. There was only one family left at the table, and Rhaegar questioned, "Vormuther and Silverwing have been sleeping for many years, and they still show up. It's nothing strange. Volcanic eruptions are natural disasters, and giant dragons also know how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages." Viserys thought of the dragon that once belonged to him, Balerion, the Black Death. It was a giant dragon larger than Rhaegar, with a pair of wings that covered the sky and the earth, and the dragon's flames were enough to melt stone. Unfortunately, it was too late when he harnessed Balerion. When he was a boy, he only rode Balerion and soared around King's Landing, but he couldn't even go back and forth to Dragonstone. Recalling the past years, Viserys chuckled, pushed away his chair and stood up. "Your king and father has eaten enough, and now he wants to go back and take a nice nap." After he left, the table fell silent. They hurriedly filled their stomachs and left the table. It was still early, so Rhaegar pestered Rhaenyra and asked her to take him around Dragonstone. It was okay. Rhaenyra agreed to the request. The 2 first walked around the castle and looked at the magnificent buildings of the ancient Valerie period. Rhaegar was amazed by this. Not only was the castle built in the shape of a dragon, but there were also 2 towers rising from the ground in the shape of a dragon, with their heads looking out in all directions. The time comes in the afternoon. Rhaenyra couldn't stand Rhaegar's insistence and took him for a walk on the beach. Looking at the towering cliffs, Rhaegar felt very cheerful and cheered. Compared to the cage-like Red Keep, he liked the natural atmosphere of Dragonstone so much. Rhaenyra looked at her brother running on the beach and said amusedly, "Poor child, he has never been far away since he was a child." Rhaegar had not yet realized that Dragonstone was just the doorstep of House Targaryen. Only when you leave the scope of the king's territory can you enter the 7 kingdoms. "Sister, come and take a look, there is a deep and dark cave here. It's my first time on Dragonstone, so I want to catch up on it, but don't keep books. Thanks to Bubble Run Milkshake for the 500 points reward, thanks to the school inspection team for the 500 reading coins, thanks to Zayuek for the 100 reading coins." Chapter 54 Dragon Crystal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Stepping on the soft sand, Rhaenyra shook off her water-soaked boots, and heard Rhaegar's call from afar. She raised her head, and Rhaegar's figure had long disappeared from her eyes. I panicked for a moment and shouted quickly, "Where are you?" "I'm looking for you." "Here, let me take a look first." Rhaegar's voice came again, but much softer. Rhaegar ran quickly in the direction of the sound. There were endless moss-covered cliffs with many caves at the bottom. Where did it go? Glancing around the cliff full of caves, Rhaegar muttered in confusion, unable to tell which one Rhaegar had crawled into. "Rhaegar, don't hide and seek with your sister, come out quickly," Rhaegar shouted, looking for her brother in anger and fury. She thought Rhaegar was playing a trick on her. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no reply from Rhaegar. This time, Rhaegar was completely panicked, looking at each cave entrance. In addition to bat droppings, there are also shells and conches left behind by the high tide. There is no trace of Rhaegar anywhere. Taking a deep breath, Rhaegar's pupils dilated, realizing that Rhaegar was no longer playing hide and seek with her. He really went into a cave. 7 hells. Who knows how deep the cave is and what's inside? Rhaegar was so anxious that she ran back, planning to summon the guards to search. In the castle, Viserys fell into a deep sleep in his chamber. As he reaches middle age, his figure begins to gain weight and his energy is no longer what it used to be. Before Rhaegar was born, he would have hugged his wife and indulged in love before falling asleep. Alicent opened the door and took a look at him, and found that he was sleeping soundly. He frowned and moved to another room. After many years of marriage, she was educated by a lady and still hated her husband's smell of alcohol. She entered a room next to it. The decoration was equally gorgeous and the air was fresher. The children were left in the care of the maid, and she also wanted to relax for a while. Dong dong, sitting in the armchair, half asleep and half awake, a knocking sound woke her up. Alicent turned back to look at the door, thinking it was the child crying and the maid calling her, but there was nothing strange about the door. And there was no voice from the maid. Dong dong, Alicent frowned slightly, looked around, and immediately sat up from his chair in shock. The banging sound came from the bedroom wall, to be precise, inside the wall. Alicent panicked and wanted to call someone to take a look. At this moment, the wall of the bedroom slowly moved and actually rotated open. Alicent was stunned, grabbed a knife from the table in a panic, and retreated to the door. The wall rotated half a circle and stopped, revealing a dark space. Alicent never imagined that there would be a secret passage inside any room he chose. Alicent carefully looked at the entrance to the secret passage, sweat dripping from his hand holding the knife tightly. Who is where? Dong dong. There were 2 more knocks, and a breeze blew from the entrance of the secret passage. The next moment, a figure shrouded in a black robe suddenly rushed out. There was a rustling sound in the dark crypt. Giada. There was a clang of flints and a torch was lit. The fire brought light to the crypt, making Rhaegar's face blush. Rhaenyra didn't follow. Do you want to go back? Rhaegar murmured softly and put the flint back into the space bracelet. Since he got this treasure, he has secretly saved a lot of supplies for emergencies. Rhaegar looked around and found that he was in a tunnel. There are traces of mining all around, as if someone has been here before. You're here, let's go inside and take a look. After calming down his excited heartbeat, Rhaegar held the torch and walked towards him. The cave is very open and has good air circulation, so you can try your luck. More importantly, Rhaegar wanted to find the escaped young dragon. Maybe the baby dragon was hiding in the cave and he happened to encounter it. After walking for a while, the tunnel gradually narrowed and there were more and more traces of excavation. A dark crystal appeared on the stone wall, as if it could swallow the firelight. Is this dragon crystal? Rhaegar touched the black crystal on the stone wall and thought of the 6 months of being spoon-fed education by 2 bachelors. He had learned that this crystal was called dragon crystal, a mineral unique to Dragonstone, also known as obsidian. There are also dragon crystals in the Red Keep, which are decorated on some special clothing and weapons. The actual effect is close to 0. Rhaegar broke off a piece of dragon crystal from a loose pit and put it into the space bracelet in a rare way. Come in and don't leave empty-handed. Illuminating the front, Rhaegar found that the tunnel was still very deep and continued walking inside. It's all the same path anyway, don't worry about getting lost. As we walked, the tunnel gradually narrowed. The dragon crystal mines began to become denser, filling the walls densely. In the end, the entire tunnel was entirely carved out of dragon crystal. Soon, the tunnel came to an end. Under the light of the cupping pot, lay Jia. Vaguely saw certain patterns carved on the dragon crystal wall: shepherds, dragons, giants, Even some kind of ferocious-looking monster. Rhaegar looked closely and took in all the carvings to figure out what was recorded. A song of ice and fire. Rhaegar immediately thought of this legend. Carved on the dragon crystal wall are prophecies representing the song of ice and fire. From the 14 fire peaks in the ancient Valyrian period to crossing the ocean in Inar, there is also a record of a long night brought about by a monster many years ago. Is the prophecy of Aegon the Conqueror true? Are there really White Walkers in the world? Rhaegar stared at the dragon crystal wall dumbfounded and muttered to himself, this kind of shock is far greater than that of a giant dragon. The legendary monster is real. Someone predicted this disaster, and it is carved in the dragon crystal mine on Dragonstone. Rhaegar reached out his hand to wipe the dust off the carving. As soon as I touched it, a system prompt sounded in my ears. This exploration mission has begun, and the target is the dragon crystal stone wall. Bring up the system panel and load the exploration data. Dragon crystal stone wall, exploration progress, 0.2%. We are on an exploration mission. It seems that these carvings are not fake. Through the initial progress of the exploration progress, Rhaegar deduced that the quality of the dragon crystal stone wall was not low. This shows that it is either precious enough or long enough. The value of the prophetic carvings on it was beyond doubt, and the time scale recorded was far beyond what he knew. It seems that he can obtain another high-quality relic. Rhaegar took out a small bench from his space bracelet and sat on the dragon crystal stone wall, waiting for the exploration to end. I hope Rhaegar won't worry and think I'm lost. Alysson's bedroom. Alyson, who broke out in a cold sweat, sat angrily on the armchair and glared ahead. The man in black robe stood in front of her, his hands folded on his lower abdomen. Alyson breathed heavily and said angrily, "Why are you on Dragonstone Island? What is your purpose?" The man in black robe didn't care about her hostility and said in a low voice, "My purpose is not important, the purpose of your trip is important." What's the meaning? Alyson was puzzled. The man in black robe said, "The two princes wanted to tame the young dragon, but unfortunately they were scared away. The guards are searching non-stop, and they will soon find out where the baby dragon is hiding." Really? I happen to know where the two baby dragons are. What do you want? I will tell you the location of the young dragon. Prince Aegon can choose first, but you have to share the other location. The man in black robe said with deep meaning. Alyson stared at the man in black robes inexplicably, wondering what his intentions were. However, thinking of the importance of a dragon to the Targaryen heirs, Alyson asked, "Where is the young dragon?" The dragon appears soon, ensuring a good show. Please follow me for updates and monthly votes. Thank you for your support. Chapter 55 The Second Legend. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a blink of an eye, the sky became gloomy. Dragon crystal mine. In front of the stone mural, the young prince was immersed in his sleep, unaware of the passage of time in the outside world. Suddenly, Rhaegar shuddered and woke up from his sleep. He looked around vaguely. The system prompt sounds just right. This exploration is over, please pick up the lost treasures. Rhaegar instantly became energetic and searched every corner with his eyes. Dragon crystal stone wall, exploration progress, 100%. Where is it? Rhaegar searched around and found a round red halo on the dragon crystal stone wall above his head. Red, it's a legendary relic. Rhaegar's eyes widened and he carefully poked through the red halo. Firework-like red light bloomed and fell on his head. The relic was picked up successfully, under detection. The test was successful and it was determined to be a legendary relic, the last fire. It is indeed a legendary level, a mysterious relic comparable to blood and fire. Rhaegar rubbed his hands expectantly and checked the faint flames appearing on the system panel. The core of the flame is orange, and the edges are wavering red, like a fire that can go out at any time. The last fire seems to be extinguished. Rhaegar, full of desire to explore, tried to activate this weak flame. Activation failed. The legendary relic is unique and special conditions must be completed before it can be activated. Hearing the explanation of the system beep, Rhaegar recalled the first time he explored Balerian's skull and obtained the legacy of the dragon. The scarred dragon scales require the blood of a true dragon to activate. Precious things are always unique. Rhaegar frowned slightly and brought up the annotation font on the system panel. Check out the comments on the last fire. Flame is the enlightenment of a civilization. Ancient civilizations grow from immaturity to behemoths, from strength to destruction. Every civilization has a unique inheritance. The immortal crystal preserves the last fire, waiting for the warriors to regain their glory. 2 lines of small print described the origin of the final fire, but did not reveal how to activate it. Rhaegar frowned slightly, secretly regretting that he had a treasure but didn't know how to use it. Since it is the last fire, it must be related to fire and magic. When it comes to fire and magic, the first thing that comes to Rhaegar's mind is dragons. The dragon's legacy requires true dragon blood. Maybe the final fire needs dragon flames. Rhaegar couldn't stop thinking wildly. Once it gets dark, the temperature in the cave gradually drops. Rhaegar's breath came out with white mist, forming a contrast between ice and fire next to the torch. What a tragedy, it must be very late. After exploring and obtaining the relic, Rhaegar's adventure was successfully completed, and now he had to face the consequences of running away. Returning along the original path, Rhaegar was thinking about how to make excuses. Outside, a bright half-moon hung high, and the night was dotted with stars. The seawater lapped on the beach, unable to stop the guards from searching. As soon as Rhaegar got out of the narrow hole, he looked up and saw torches swaying and noisy voices calling his name. "I'm here." Rhaegar raised his torch and called to the guards not far away. "Your Highness, come quickly, we have found Prince Rhaegar." A guard shouted quickly. Wow, there were chaotic footsteps on the beach, and Rhaegar was guarded among them. Soon, the figures of Viserys and Rhaenyra appeared in front of him. Before Viserys, the father, could say anything, Rhaenyra rushed forward and threw him to the ground. Her pretty face was full of anger, and her voice was hoarse and crying. "You bastard, where have you gone?" "I found something in the cave." Rhaegar didn't dare to move, lowered his head and said, "No. There's nothing more important than your safety. You almost scared me to death." Rhaenyra was like a violent female dragon, with tears falling down her cheeks, and she choked with sobs. "You disappeared under my nose. If something happens to you, what do you want me to do? My mother only left you as my only support. What should I do without you?" As she spoke, Rhaenyra's tears rolled down her cheeks. She angrily pushed Rhaegar down on her legs and spanked her but hard. Seeing his sister who was so sad, Rhaegar didn't dare to resist. He covered his face with his hands and let her teach her. "All right, Rhaenyra." Viserys, who was still angry at first, lost his temper when he saw this, and walked to his daughter to comfort her. "Don't forget that the sun just found her and made her very angry." Rhaenyra stopped, wiped her tears with her sleeves, and said threateningly, "Next time, I'll break your legs, drag you back to the Red Keep, and lock you in the attic for the rest of your life." Rhaegar nodded like a fool, promising that there would be no next time. While taking out a piece of dragon crystal from his arms, he said with mixed truth and falsehood, "I didn't run around on purpose, but there was a mysterious feeling calling me." "Fart, this is all your excuse." Rhaenyra cursed directly. Viserys frowned and asked in confusion, "Did you enter the dragon crystal mine?" "Yes, that unknown existence guided me to the dragon crystal mine and revealed the ancient legend." Rhaegar confirmed. "What is it?" Viserys half believed the eldest son's words. The importance of a dreamwalker in his heart was extremely high, and he was willing to listen to the adventures of his eldest son. Rhaegar drew several imitation drawings on the sand and said solemnly, "A long time ago, someone carved the legend of the Song of Ice and Fire in the Dragon Crystal Mine." Viserys looked at the sand paintings and hurriedly asked, "It's really a Song of Ice and Fire? Which mine is it in?" He remembered the prophecy recorded in the Dragonhorn dagger. There were similar legendary records at the moment. How could he not go and take a look? Rhaegar pointed out the entrance to the cave for him, and Viserys said, "You and Rhaenyra go back and rest first. She is very tired from looking for you all day." Then he led Harold, the accompanying captain of the Kingsguard, and 2 guards into the cave. Rhaenyra was half informed and confused. "What is a Song of Ice and Fire? Isn't that a legend?" "I can't explain it at the moment, let's go back first." Rhaegar held her hand in a flattering manner. "Go back and explain to me." Rhaenyra turned away and held his hand tightly. It's already midnight. She had been looking for it since lunch and was exhausted, tired and hungry. After dinner, Rhaegar's bedroom, the siblings finished washing and lay on the bed in their pajamas, Rhaegar carefully explained the history of the Song of Ice and Fire and what he had seen in the cave. Rhaenyra's beautiful eyes widened and she whispered, "Are there really White Walkers and legions of the dead in the world? Who knows, the last legendary era was thousands of years ago." Rhaegar leaned into her arms, enjoying the soft warmth, and said with squinted eyes, "Our ancestors were the Dragon Kings in the ancient Valyrian period. Going back to that time, they were just a group of shepherds. I think a Song of Ice and Fire should be a disaster unique to Westeros." Rhaenyra raised her eyebrows slightly, like the world-destroying natural disaster in ancient Valyria. "Probably not. Eternal night is an extremely cold disaster caused by ghosts. According to historical records, the human army defeated the Night King and saved the continent. On the other hand, the ancient Valyrian civilization had so many dragons, and its overall strength far exceeded any period in Westeros, and it was still destroyed by the natural disaster. It can be seen that the world-destroying natural disaster is more terrifying, leaving no room for resistance. That I finally finished watching the show Game of Thrones last night, and I was really touched by it. The first 7 seasons were great dramas, nothing else to say. My review of season 8 is a piece of shit, especially after watching the last episode. Dragon Mother was killed, Snow returned to the Great Wall, and the children of the Wolf family realized their wishes. Every cell in my body said one word: disgusting. Longma struggled for so long and was killed like this. Snow is so miserable, he chooses the worst one out of 10,000 solutions. Chapter 56. Make up your mind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You seem to know a lot. Seeing Rhaegar's boastful expression, Rhaenyra pinched his cheek. Of course, I was forced to read thousands of books, and my mind was filled with knowledge. Rhaegar was frightened at the mention of this matter and suffered deeply from the spoon-feeding education. Rhaenyra snorted softly and asked, "You are so smart, help me analyze the problem. Come here." Rhaegar was confident. "Father has considered a marriage partner for me, Lanino, the son of the sea serpent." Rhaenyra's tone was calm, concealing that there was another marriage partner who was Rhaegar himself. Rhaegar was stunned for a moment, not expecting that this was what she was asking about. He is just a kid, how can he understand politics? After hesitating, Rhaegar asked, "Do you like him?" "I don't like it." Rhaenyra denied directly. Rhaegar tried hard to work his little brain and asked doubtfully, "Father wants to win over the sea snake." Rhaenyra hugged him tighter and said calmly, "The sea serpent is a famous naval commander. The Velaryon family is extremely rich and has 3 dragons guarding it. It is worth winning over at any cost. It's a good idea. It's in line with my father's style of doing things." Rhaegar seemed to feel his sister's silence, and his voice lost the brisk tone. "Tell me, should I agree and shoulder the responsibility of the heir?" Rhaenyra's eyes flashed with amusement. "If it were me, I would agree." Rhaegar responded softly, burying his head and not daring to look at Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra snorted softly, pushed him away and said, "I knew you and father were in the same group." "No, I have not." Rhaegar immediately retorted and said anxiously, "But you are the heir, and you have to face trouble until there is a better way." "Who's the trouble, me?" Rhaenyra said displeased. "It's a sea snake." A flash of inspiration flashed in Rhaegar's mind and he insisted. Rhaenyra was choked by his statement and rubbed her brows. "When Aunt Rhaenys missed the throne, the sea snake has always been resentful. Everyone knows that he is troublesome. We can't solve the trouble, but we can solve the people who caused the trouble." Rhaegar said sternly. "Rhaegar, I won't allow you to have such dangerous thoughts." Rhaenyra was startled by him and warned sternly. Rhaegar shook his head, "I didn't want to kill the sea serpent. With so many people in the Velaryon family, there is one less sea serpent, Corlys, and many sea lions and seals. Everything he does is a desire for power, and we can use that to break down his shield." Rhaenyra said confusedly, "If you were me, what would you do? The strongest members of the Velaryon family are the Sea Fleet and the 3 dragons. The battle on the Stepstone Islands has seriously damaged the vitality of the Sea Serpent fleet, and it will not be able to recover for a while. Our attention should be on their family's dragon. Rhaegar paused and frowned. Rhaenys is the princess of the Targaryen family. She will not be hostile to the family. But her 2 children, the eldest daughter Lanniar, has tamed Rhaegar. I heard that they are engaged and will eventually marry outside. Lanino's mount is the new generation Sea Smoke. He participated in the Battle of the Stone Steppe Islands and his military capabilities are not weak. Go on, what are your ideas? Rhaenyra's eyes were bright. Rhaegar thought, if you want to break up the 3 dragons, you must first formulate corresponding rules. You can try to form a royal dragoon group to recall dragon knights with other than Targaryen surnames and manage them properly. Except for the Targaryen surname, the current dragon knights only have a pair of children of the sea serpent, which is too targeted. Rhaenyra did not think it was feasible. It's definitely not possible to ask him to join. You have to go through a series of coercion and inducement. Rhaegar pondered for a while, but there was not enough deterrence, and he sighed helplessly. It would be great if my father also had an adult dragon, so we wouldn't be so passive. Stop thinking nonsense. Ever since Balerion passed away, my father's desire for dragons has been very low. Rhaenyra smoothed his frown and smiled. You are already very smart. When you grow up, you will be a powerful politician. I want to help you. Rhaegar said disappointedly. You can help me when you grow up. Lorenella said softly and kissed his forehead. I'm afraid it's too late. Rhaegar suddenly raised his head and said extremely seriously, I don't want to tame the young dragon. Instead of hatching it with my own hands, it is better to tame an adult dragon. How come you suddenly have such an idea? Rhaenyra asked strangely. I can't help you, but I can certainly help you as I control an adult dragon. Rhaegar got up from the bed and said while putting on his shoes, I'm going to find Lord Robert. He knows the lairs of Wormother and Silverwing. Don't be ridiculous. Menghua's lesson wasn't enough. Rhaenyra pulled him back with one hand, her eyes filled with relief and helplessness as she said, adult dragons are very dangerous. Vermithor is known as the Fury of Bronze, and his temper is worse than Dreamfire. You can always help me by being obedient and taming a young dragon and raising it slowly. I almost tamed Dreamfire before. I have the ability to tame an adult dragon. Rhaegar is confident that his pure bloodline and talent are not afraid of challenges. I will never allow you to take risks for me, understand that, Rhaegar. Rhaenyra pressed his shoulders, urging him not to refuse. Rhaegar's mouth squirmed twice, and finally turned into a sigh and nodded under his sister's intense gaze. Very well, you are a good brother if you don't let me worry. Rhaenyra put him on the bed. Rhaegar was silent, his eyes uncertain. Deep down in his heart, he was planning how to tame Wormizor or Silverwing. Alicent bullied him and Rhaenyra for not having a mother. The sea serpent is ambitious with the help of 3 dragons tamed from the Targaryen family. In the final analysis, it was just because his father Viserys was easy to bully that he dared to act unscrupulously. He thought it was time for him to tame an adult dragon and change the disadvantage of a weak master and a strong minister. Father needs me, Rhaenyra needs me too. The second before the lights went out, Rhaegar lay on his side on the bed and secretly made up his mind. The next day, Rhaegar had just woken up when he heard a knock on the door. Then came Cole's reminder. Princess, the king just sent someone to ask you to come over to discuss matters. Yes, Sir Cole. Rhaenyra hurriedly put on her clothes and warned Rhaegar, don't run around, do you hear me? Don't worry. Rhaegar patted his chest. Rhaenyra pushed the door open and told Cole, watch him, don't let him run around. Rhaegar was a bad boy with a criminal record, and she was worried about leaving him alone. Cole nodded in agreement. Yes, Princess. After repeatedly confirming that nothing was wrong, Rhaenyra left with peace of mind. In the bedroom, Rhaegar was already dressed. Servants brought breakfast. Rhaegar picked up a piece of bread and gnawed it. He looked back at Cole who was guarding the door and asked, have you eaten? Let's go together. Cole declined. Thank you for your kindness, no need to bother. Rhaegar did not force it and ate alone. It's a pity that Illich didn't come with him. The Kingsguard only brought Captain Harold and Cole. Maybe I can have a bite with him. Sir Cole, is there any news about the search for the young dragon? Rhaegar suddenly asked. Some book friends don't know the number and time of daily updates, so I'd like to remind you again. Updates are made twice a day, at 11 a.m. and 16:00 p.m. Thank you for your updates and votes. With your support, the work can thrive. Thanks to Chun Lai for the 1666 reading point for the picture reward, thanks to AI 5676906 and a digital book friend for the 100 points each. Chapter 57, Prying About Each Other. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not yet. I heard that Queen Alicent has sent extra manpower. Cole answered honestly. Is Lord Robert looking for you too? Rhaegar pretended to chat casually. Cole replied, yes, Lord Robert personally led the team and went to the beach to find you, the prince, last night. Rhaegar rolled his eyes, stood up and said, I'm full, let's take a walk around the castle. Cole walked out quickly whether he wanted to or not. Cole hesitated for a moment, thinking that the princess's order was just to keep an eye on the prince, and it shouldn't be considered running around if he didn't leave the castle, follow Rhaegar and look after him. What do you think my sister and father will talk about? Rhaegar asked after walking a short distance. The king and the princess naturally talk about important things. I would never have thought of it. Cole always remained humble. Guess, my sister trusts you so much, Rhaegar urged. Cole was asked more questions and began to hesitate, and said slowly, the last few conversations have mostly been about the princess's marriage. I know very little about it. Do you know Lanino? The eldest son of Lord Corlys, the sea serpent. It seems you know each other. When Lord Sea Snake was serving as Minister of the Sea, the princess often met with his children. I was lucky enough to meet them. Rhaegar turned his head and said extremely seriously, what kind of person is Lanino? Answer me seriously, sir. Cole remained calm on his face and gave a fair evaluation. Sir Lanino is very handsome, has an easygoing personality, and is an excellent knight. Then, does he have any bad habits? Rhaegar continued to ask, based on Rhaegar's understanding of Rhaenyra, if Lanino is as perfect as Cole said, it would be a perfect match. Rhaenyra liked handsome, gentle men, and there was no reason to resist. Cole kept his mouth shut and remained silent. Rhaegar understood, Lanino had problems, but chivalry made Cole refuse to speak ill of others behind their backs. Rhaegar probed, is he addicted to drinking and gambling? Sir Lanino likes to drink and never gambles. Cole answered strictly. Rhaegar then asked, he is a prostitute and has a chaotic private life. Cole opened his mouth and hesitated. Sir Lanino never goes to whoring. What about private life? Rhaegar realized the point. I heard occasionally that Sir Lanino is not a womanizer, and there are no scandals in this regard. Cole carefully selected his words. Rhaegar frowned. You don't deny that his private life is chaotic, but you say that he is not close to women. This is very conflicting. Cole turned his head away, looking upright, receiving no answer. Rhaegar walked on, wondering what Cole meant. Suddenly, Rhaegar stopped. A possibility flashed in my mind. He likes men. Rhaegar looked at Cole in surprise. Cole lowered his eyes, neither agreeing nor objecting. Rhaenyra still didn't understand this reaction. My father wants to marry Rhaenyra to a man whose sexual orientation is not normal. Isn't he afraid of the consequences of disharmony after marriage? Rhaegar thought to himself, none of the Targaryens are vegetarians, all of them are carnivores. Absurd, father's decision-making is too confusing. Rhaegar whispered, becoming more determined about his next plan. Take me to Lord Robert's room. He should have a map of Dragonstone. Rhaegar ordered Cole. Cole said, may I ask, what is the use of the map of Dragonstone? Look for the dragon. Only take action if you have a map. Rhaegar confirmed. Looking for the baby dragon will have its own guard, you just have to wait. Her Majesty the Queen has already sent people to look for it. Of course, if she finds the dragon, Aegon must tame it first. I can't keep waiting. The reasons Rhaegar gave were reasonable. Cole also agreed with this and suggested, if you want a map of Dragonstone, you don't have to go to Master Wood's room. There is a map hidden in the princess's bedroom. Didn't you tell me earlier? Rhaegar looked helpless. You just asked. Cole said honestly. Rhaegar slapped his forehead, turned around and walked back. Returning to the bedroom, he found a map of Dragonstone that was 2 meters wide. Just put it under the bed. Lying down on the map and looking at it carefully, Rhaegar looked for the location of the volcano. Wormizer and Silverwing live in lairs under the volcano, and to find them you have to start near the volcano. Here, in the Rocky Mountains east of Dragonstone. In addition to dragons, Dragonstone is also characterized by stones. This rocky mountain range runs east and west, and the active volcano is located here. After memorizing the general direction, Rhaegar knew what was going on and decided to go out to look for the dragon. He had already thought of excuses. Look for the young dragon. Cole deliberately refused. Rhaegar said displeasedly, training dragons is the duty of every Targaryen. I have to join the dragon hunting team and contribute. I can't explain it to the princess for allowing you to go out. Cole shook his head. Then you go with me and come back before dinner. Rhaegar said and walked away, not giving Cole a chance to refuse. Cole sighed deeply and had no choice but to follow. The identity of this prince was so special that both the king and the princess cared about him very much. He could only do his best to ensure the prince's safety. The castle is located to the north of Dragonstone. Rhaegar left the Red Castle, skipping the stone steps and walking towards the farming area behind the castle. There are many civilians on Dragonstone. Some of them are the bastards of the Targaryen family and their descendants, living on Dragonstone Island for generations. The conditions are pretty good. The conversation ended and Rhaenyra walked out of her father's room. There was a faint sadness between his eyebrows. Viserys searched for the prophetic stone wall in the middle of the night last night and returned at dawn. Before he could rest, he couldn't wait to find Rhaenyra. He told her about the prophecy of the Song of Ice and Fire, and showed her the record of the Dragonhorn dagger. This made her worried about the possible emergence of Eternal Night and the White Walkers in the future. She asked herself whether that day would really come. Does she have the confidence to lead the 7 great nations to defeat Eternal Night and tide over the difficulties? The answer is, no. Fortunately, Eternal Night has not appeared for thousands of years. The prince in the prophecy is named Aegon. He will definitely not be the coward who can only cry. Thinking of Alicent's son Aegon, Rhaenyra regained her confidence. On the way back, Alicent's voice came from behind. Rhaenyra, let's talk together. Rhaenyra turned her head and said, what do we have to talk about? It's not time for afternoon tea yet. Come on, I'm deeply sorry for doubting you last time and want to have a heart-to-heart talk with you. Alicent looked forward to it with a genuine look on his face, just like before, when you and I talked about everything. Facing Alicent's expression at this moment, Rhaenyra was disgusted from the bottom of her heart. The two sides were close to falling out. It also talks about the deep love between sisters. Okay, let's talk then. Rhaenyra agreed, wanting to see what she had in mind. Alicent stepped forward and took her hand, and walked towards the castle garden with a smile. While walking, Alicent asked, why don't you see Rhaegar? He was resting. He sneaked out yesterday. I didn't allow him to go out. Rhaenyra told the truth. I heard that he found some ancient prophetic mural. Yeah, a Song of Ice and Fire. I thought that was a scary story about wet nurses putting their children to sleep. It is indeed full of mythology. Rhaenyra didn't explain much. The Song of Ice and Fire is a prophecy from the ancestors that only heirs need to know, and it is not Alicent's turn to understand it. The dragon will appear tomorrow, thanks to AI 5676906 for the 10,000 points reward. I became the first helmsman, thanks to Tadanobu Shimazu for the 200 points. After thinking about it, a helmsman should add an update. Coupled with the small achievements of the milestone, next Tuesday will continue to explode even better. Chapter 58 White Robe. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dusk, Rhaegar's steps stopped at a farmland. Farther away, there are endless stone mountains with no grass growing on them. Prince, it's time for us to return to the castle. Cole, who acted as an escort, persuaded. Rhaegar looked at the mountains in the distance and murmured, the active volcano on the island is right there. Prince, if you don't go back, the princess will be angry. Cole sighed helplessly. I know, we will go back before dark. Rhaegar said nonchalantly. After walking around the small towns on the island, Rhaegar found out a lot of information. For example, the approximate location of the lair where Wormizer and Silverwing live all year round. Come on, Sir Cole. Taking one last look at the few silver-haired children chasing and fighting at the entrance of the town, Rhaegar turned and walked back. Cole followed closely and asked curiously, "Prince, do you lack playmates?" "No, it's just weird about their hair color." Looking at the hair colors of those children, Rhaegar wondered if there might be his illegitimate brothers among them. My father was also a strong and energetic young man when he was young." In the evening, the family had dinner and went back to their rooms. Rhaegar was dragged to her chamber by Rhaenyra as usual, and the two siblings whispered. Rhaenyra was the first to speak. "Cor said you went to town." "I want to find a young dragon as soon as possible and tame one." Rhaegar responded calmly. "It's best this way. Young dragons are more suitable for young Targaryens. Syracuse and I have been together since childhood." Rhaenyra understood a child's desire for a dragon. After thinking for a while, he said, "Alicent came to chat with me. We chatted for a long time." "What do you have to say?" Rhaegar asked doubtfully. "I asked Alicent that too." Rhaenyra pondered. "She talked about my marriage and made some suggestions, but I rejected them." "Anything else?" "I sounded very bad at the time, but Alicent was not angry at all, and even mentioned the sightings of 2 young dragons." "So you think?" "Something weird," that the 2 siblings said it almost at the same time, then looked at each other and smiled. Rhaegar smiled and said, "Alicent is a narrow-minded woman. If she is willing to put down her dignity to find trouble, she must have bad intentions." "I think so too. Alicent has been better than me in everything since he was a child. He despises me from the bottom of his heart and won't show kindness to me for no reason." Rhaenyra curled her lips, knowing herself. Rhaegar asked, "Where did she say the traces of the 2 young dragons were?" "2 young dragons appeared on the east coast and had a fight," Rhaenyra said. "It's close to an active volcano, so it should be true." Rhaegar analyzed based on the geographical location. Dragons are creatures that like high-temperature environments. Caves under volcanoes are the best living environment. Rhaenyra twisted her fingers around a strand of hair with a firm look in her eyes. "We have to find the 2 young dragons before she does." "The 2 young dragons are probably together, don't worry." Rhaegar didn't care much about this. "What do you know?" "There are 3 levels of dragons. A young dragon with high talent will grow very fast in the future." Rhaenyra slapped him angrily. "I don't even know what the 2 young dragons look like, so how can I tell them apart?" Rhaegar said aggrievedly. Rhaenyra sat up and said sternly, "Choose Yang Yen. That golden dragon with golden scales and pale pink wing membranes. A young dragon that hatched from a nest of dragon eggs in your Syrax." Rhaegar asked curiously. "That's right, Sunfire hatched a few years later than Syrax. It is a very handsome dragon. You must fight for it." Rhaenyra emphasized this point. "The Targaryens control the golden dragon, that sounds great." Rhaegar felt funny when he thought of that scene. "Rhaegar, I'm not kidding you. Sunfire is really suitable for you. You don't want to be snatched away by Aegon, right?" Rhaenyra was very concerned about her brother's choice of young dragon. She paid special attention to that golden baby dragon. The original plan was to bring Rhaegar to tame Yang Yen when he couldn't hatch a dragon egg when he was 10 years old. Rhaegar and Aegon both had to train dragons during this trip, and she arranged for Rhaegar to get in touch with Sunfire first. Unexpectedly, the volcano erupted, causing the 2 young dragons to be too frightened to return to their lair. If Alicent finds Yang Yen first, he can be tamed by Aegon successfully. Rhaenyra would be sick to death, seeing his sister who was about to go crazy. Rhaegar suppressed his smile and promised again and again, "I will try to tame Yang Yen and not give Aegon a chance." "Humph, that's more like it." Rhaenyra snorted and lay down again. In her opinion, it is natural for the 2 siblings to each tame a golden dragon. This is fate. Early the next morning, Rhaegar got up from the bed and put on a black dragon suit under the service of the maid. Touching the dragon scale-style shoulder pads on his shoulders, Rhaegar said helplessly, "Do you really want to dress like this?" Rhaenyra lay lazily on her side on the bed and said weakly, "The material of the dragon control suit is excellent, wear-resistant and breathable, and it is very suitable for long-term activities. As long as you agree to let me go out to hunt for dragons, I can wear whatever I want." Rhaegar tortured her all night last night, begging to join the dragon hunting team, and finally got the approval. Before going out, Rhaenyra stopped him and reminded, "I'm not feeling well. Cole will follow you, and a team of dragon guards will be dispatched to follow. Don't worry, no matter how careful Alicent is, he won't dare to attack me." Rhaegar patted his chest and set off with excitement. After leaving the castle, we headed straight for the active volcano. Rhaegar's goal was not the young dragon from beginning to end, and there was no need to go to the east coast. "Prince, our trip should go to the east coast first." Finding that the direction was gradually deviating, Cole frowned and asked. "The east coast is the information," Alicent said. "How much do you think is true and how false do you think it is?" Rhaegar asked rhetorically. Cole was speechless for a moment. While sailing on the ship, he heard about the conflict between the queen and the prince and knew that the relationship between the two parties was extremely bad. Rhaegar said, "So come with me, is that okay?" "What you said makes sense, Prince." Cole pursed his lips and shut up sensibly. Rhaegar glanced at the hard-working Cole, and noticed the white robe behind him from the corner of his eye. Slightly startled, Rhaegar said out of nowhere, "The white robe represents the glory of the king's guard." "Yes, Prince." Cole gently stroked his white robe, with a flash of pride in his eyes, and said, "I came from a mediocre background. When I was young, I worked as a squire for a certain adult. Later, I risked my life to gain military exploits in an invasion battle with the Dornish people, and I have the honor I have today." "You cherish your current life, right?" Rhaegar asked with a chuckle. Cole nodded solemnly. "Because of this white robe, I have unprecedented honor and dignity." It can be seen that he takes his mission very seriously. Somehow, Rhaegar had a strange feeling about Cole's white robe. The white is clean, the white is pure and flawless. Rhaegar suddenly remembered a dream he once had and asked doubtfully, "If it is stained with dust, wouldn't it become a dirty handkerchief?" Looking back at Cole, who had an upright face, Rhaegar's eyes were uncertain. "Cole, cherish it and don't let it get dusty." Rhaegar's voice was calm. "I will, Prince." Although he didn't understand why the prince reminded him to protect the white robe, Cole still smiled and promised, his eyes full of expectations for the future. Change Cole's fate and give him a good ending. Fulfilling one's duty is the lifelong honor of a white knight. Chapter 59 Grey Shadow. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After the small interlude, the group of people walked on quietly, arrive at a canyon in the strange rock mountains before the sun is scorching. An accompanying dragon guard said, "Active volcanoes are accompanied by the risk of magma eruptions. In order to avoid disasters, the adult dragons on the island will build nests deep underground nearby. The canyon in front of me was once inhabited by Wormizer and Silverwing, but was later abandoned for unknown reasons." Rhaegar asked, "Go in and take a look. Just send the dragon guards to investigate. You don't have to take risks." Cole said as he ordered a few dragon guards to come out and run towards the canyon. Rhaegar did not object. After all, it was an abandoned lair, and the probability of finding a dragon was too low, not worth the trip in person. After waiting for a while, the dispatched dragon guard did not come back, but two guards came from behind. The guard came to the group and saluted respectfully. Rhaegar asked, "What do you want?" A guard quickly replied, "Lord Robert has found two young dragons, one of which is being imprisoned, and the other was found in Dragon Mountain. Longshan is located on the west side of the active volcano. It is a large range of high and dangerous peaks. Not long ago, Silverwing laid dragon eggs there." The accompanying Long Way explained from the side. "Then what are you waiting for? Let's go." As soon as he heard that there were traces of silver wings in Longshan, Rhaegar immediately became energetic. Cole leaned over and whispered, "Prince, there are adult dragons in Longshan, we shouldn't take risks. We are only searching near Longshan. Lord Robert will also send people there, no problem." What Rhaegar was looking for was an adult dragon, and he was worried that he wouldn't have a chance to meet it. Pointing to a guard waiting for the dragon guard who had not returned, Rhaegar ordered the other to lead the way. The distance between the two parties was not far, and the group soon arrived at Longshan. Because it is close to an active volcano, this place is even more desolate, with strange black rocks everywhere and lifeless. The temperature is also higher than usual, and it feels like being in the heat of summer. Entering the cave of Dragon Mountain, Cole asked, "When will Lord Robert come? We can't catch a young dragon that resists fiercely with our hands." "Maybe it's not here yet, sir." The guard was also a little strange and continued to lead the way. After walking for some distance, the cave became increasingly hotter and filled with a putrid smell. Rhaegar looked around, pointed at the guard and asked, "Who asked you to pass on the news? Have you seen Lord Robert with your own eyes?" That the guard's face turned pale and he said uneasily, "Lord Robert is on his way here." "Prince, don't be impatient." Rhaegar saw his guilty conscience at a glance and said sternly, "Cole, take him down." Cole immediately pulled out his sword and put it on the opponent's neck. The remaining 2 dragon guards pushed him to the ground. The guard quickly begged for mercy. "Prince, I didn't lie. The young dragon is really in Dragon Mountain, and Lord Robert will definitely come. Gag his mouth." Rhaegar was not in the mood to listen to his quibbles, and he saw that he was talking nonsense. "What you say cannot be trusted." Frowning, Rhaegar squatted on the ground playing with 2 small stones. "This is the East Coast, this is an active volcano, Longshan." Being in Longshan, he cautiously thought about the only information, the East Coast, that Alicent revealed. The young dragon that the guard said was in Longshan. Very confusing. Rhaegar murmured to himself, "There are mixed truths and lies on the East Coast. What is the purpose of the guards tricking me into entering Longshan? It would never be the kindness of my heart that would lead me to find a young dragon." Rhaegar remembered the information about Silver Wing laying dragon eggs in Longshan, and his thoughts suddenly broadened. It was probably Eni who had just laid dragon eggs in Longshan, and led me into Longshan, where I was attacked by Eni in the manic stage. Rhaegar immediately thought of this possibility. Having figured it out, Rhaegar took a breath. Instead of fear of conspiracy, his mind was filled with the desire to tame an adult dragon. "The Silver Wing is in Longshan, I can try to control it." That he knew that a female dragon that had just laid dragon eggs had a very bad temper and was full of hostility to all living creatures in sight, but I still couldn't help but want to try it. "Just take a look, and if it doesn't work, leave." With a sense of luck, Rhaegar walked up to the guard who was tied up by Wu Huada, and said condescendingly, "The person who sent the message said that the young dragon is in Longshan." "Yes, that's what Lord Robert said in the information. I really didn't lie." The guard defended in panic. "Who sent the information?" Rhaegar asked. "He is a dragon man under Lord Robert. He is very respected. It seems that someone bribed the dragon man." Cole heard the words and said. Rhaegar nodded, "I know, someone has set up a conspiracy. We should go back, confront Lord Robert, and uncover the traitors." Cole looked solemn. "No, we have entered Longshan. There is no reason to return empty-handed." Rhaegar calmed down and wanted to continue exploring. Cole stopped in front of him and said seriously, "Prince, Longshan is very dangerous. I can't let you get involved in danger." Rhaegar was still thinking of an excuse to escape when a painful roar came from the depths of the cave. "Everyone, protect the prince and retreat." Cole reacted immediately and covered Rhaegar with his sword. Hiss. The dragon guards formed a circle around Rhaegar, and the roar came again. Rhaegar grabbed Cole's white robe and said in surprise, "Listen, this is not the voice of an adult dragon." Cole's eyes were alert and his ears were attentive. Sure enough, the roars sounded one after another, not as thick as the adult dragon, but slightly more childish and sharp. Rhaegar smiled, "That's exactly what we're aiming for. Let's go and take a look." Cole hesitated several times, but Rhaegar moved forward first. Cole waved his fist helplessly and gave an order to the dragon guard, "Take this traitor with you and throw him out to feed the dragon when in danger." The guard shook his head in panic, his mouth was blocked and unable to speak, and he was dragged away in despair. The cave was deep and winding, and as Rhaegar groped forward in the darkness, the roar of the young dragon became clearer and clearer. He didn't care if there were any baby dragons, but the existence of the young dragon allows him to go deep into Longshan, which is enough. Soon, the cave began to open up, revealing a huge cave. Rhaegar moved forward against the warm stone wall, and a restless beast appeared in front of him. "That's a dragon." Rhaegar looked carefully. The dragon's scales were light gray, its wing membranes were transparent and light white, and its pair of grey-blue vertical pupils were full of panic. "That's the Grey Shadow, Prince." The dragon guard who followed him revealed the name of this grey dragon. Sun Flame and Grey Shadow were dragons hatched from dragon eggs at the same time. They were similar in size and were classified as young dragons. Rhaegar did not respond and remained observant. The Grey Shadow is larger than a horse, and it looks huge lying on the ground. However, at this moment, he was roaring in fear. "He's injured," Rhaegar said softly. He saw the Grey Shadow twisting its body in pain. The light grey scales, which were well hidden in the dim environment, were covered with scars and dripping with blood. The most serious injury came from one of its wings. It was almost uprooted from its ribs and dragged feebly to the ground, causing it to lose its ability to fly. "It hurts badly." Rhaegar remembered the news Alicent had revealed, that there were 2 young dragons fighting on the east coast. It seems she wasn't lying about this. Grey Shadow's injuries were probably caused by Yang Yen. Thank you for your follow-up reading. The author has decided to update the book today. There will be 5 chapters in total, and dragon training is completed. Thanks to Zhao Jinyu for the 1900 points, thanks to Alex Bingfang for the 1500 points reward, thanks to Xiao Nianfan for the 600 points, thank you for the 100 reading points that the flashing light and the strong wind will not bring you. Chapter 60 The Glutton. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A dragon guard whispered, "Prince, do we want to capture Grey Shadow?" "Shut your stinky mouth," Cole scolded directly and warned, "a seriously injured young dragon will attack at any time." "Do you want to be burned to ashes?" Longwei shut up angrily and retreated to the rear to guard the guards who were delivering the message. "Prince, we should return immediately and ask Lord Robert to send more men to rescue this dragon." In the dim environment and the roar of the young dragon, Cole always felt dangerous and urged Lei Jia to be safe. Rhaegar shook his head and said to himself, "This is a trap. There shouldn't be only one seriously injured Grey Shadow. Because it's a trap, we should evacuate as soon as possible." Cole was impatient and tried to control his voice. Rumble. Suddenly, there was a roar over the cave, like the roar of the wind before a storm. The group of people raised their heads and saw a huge creature with wings covering the sky and the earth hovering above Longshan. 7 hells. Cole's eyes were straightened. He was so shocked that he couldn't move his eyes away, and he sighed in horror. Boom. After circling in a circle, the behemoth slid to the ground, stepped on the cliff above the cave with its feet, penetrated the rock with its sharp claws, and stopped steadily on the top of the mountain. Hiss. The behemoth stretched its neck, extended its wings with all its strength, and roared with its ferocious dragon head raised to the sky. Through the layers of obstacles, Rhaegar glimpsed the whole picture of the giant beast, scales as black as charcoal, comparable in size to a small mountain, a pair of green vertical pupils. The various characteristics cannot be described one by one. Rhaegar has never been so shocked in his experience at a young age. This dragon is so huge. No matter whether it was Colic Xiu whom he met for the first time or Menghua, who was nearly 100 years old, they could not compare with him, like crows and sparrows. "Quick! Take the prince and retreat." Cole was the first to come to his senses, pushing several dragon guards and protecting Lei Jia behind him. "Greedy, glutton." A dragon guard near the front was stunned, muttering the name of this huge black dragon. "Wake up and leave." Cole slapped him hard. Another dragon guard trembled all over and said in fear, "This is Glutton, the largest wild dragon on the island." Cole didn't know what Glutton meant, but he knew that if he didn't run away now, he would become a dragon later. Roar. At this time, the Glutton let out a low roar, bending its neck downwards like a giant python, sniffing around with its nose, seemingly looking for something. "Prince, I will take you away." Cole held the sword in one hand and took Rhaegar's hand to leave. Rhaegar shook it off and stood there staring blankly. Cole cast a confused look. However, Lei Jia was seen trembling all over, his pupils were dilating, and his breathing was getting heavier. "Prince, what's wrong with you?" Cole thought Rhaegar was frightened and waved his hand in front of him. Rhaegar turned a blind eye, his eyes fixed on the huge black dragon above. With indescribable excitement, he trembled. "Glutton, such a big dragon. I have seen it." The moment he saw the Glutton, Rhaegar fell into a state of concentration as if no one else was watching. he had seen that huge black dragon before, in his dream, appeared 3 times in total. The last time was the night before landing on the island, showing some physical characteristics. I thought it was just a dream foretelling how to train a dragon. Unexpectedly, this dragon actually exists in reality. Looking at the glutton with gleaming eyes, Rhaegar felt that his heart was going to jump out of his body, and his excitement was beyond words. Cole shook his body, trying to call him out of his daze. At the same time, the glutton stopped sniffing the scent, and the dragon's head probed into the cave below. It has found its prey, a delicious little treat. The glutton's wings flapped, and the dragon's snout, which could hold several war horses, opened, and hot air flowed from his throat. Boom! The next moment, green dragon flames with the same color as his pupils spurted out, pouring from top to bottom into the cave like a flood. Crackling, a heat wave swept over, the air was burning, and the surrounding stone walls melted like wax under the dragon's flames, and sticky drops rolled down. Run, run! The hot magma fell to the ground and burst into fiery red flowers. One of the dragon guards screamed and turned around to escape due to fear. Swish! Cole moved faster, and the long sword sliced off his head cleanly. He angrily shouted, "Those who run away from battle will die." The other dragon guards were frightened, and tried to persuade them one after another. Sir, the glutton is the most dangerous wild dragon. In its eyes, the same kind is nothing but blood food. Let's run away. I know I have to escape, so I need to protect the prince's safety first. Cole scolded, turned to look at Rhaegar, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Prince, I have to take you away." With that said, he was about to carry Rhaegar on his shoulders. Rhaegar suddenly dodged his arm, his face extremely determined. "You guys, let's go. The 7 gods guided me here just to arrange for me to meet it. Now is not the time to hold on to your beliefs. The glutton is obviously here to hunt the baby dragon, and we can't save it." Cole believed that Rhaegar had good intentions for the seriously injured Grey Shadow. "No. What I want is not Grey Shadow." Rhaegar shook his head and smiled, running quickly past Cole's blocking position. In his disbelieving eyes, he rushed into the open cave against the lava dripping like raindrops. Rhaegar raised his head, put his hands in the shape of trumpets to his mouth, and shouted with all his strength in High Valyrian, "Glutton, look at me." The childish voice echoed in the cave and reached the ears of the black dragon. The glutton stopped breathing dragon flames, and the dragon's head swung from side to side, measuring whether the cave could accommodate its huge body. After confirming that there was no problem, the glutton folded his wings, released his claws from the broken rock, and slowly drilled into the cave. The Grey Shadow lying on the ground shivered, looking at the glutton approaching from above in fear, and roared threateningly at the top of its lungs. Even Rhaegar didn't notice when he walked up to it. Rhaegar pushed the Grey Shadow's tail with both hands and shouted in High Valyrian, "Stand up and change positions." In the midst of shouting over and over again, Grey Shadow woke up from the fear, struggled to crawl around, and looked at him with his erect pupils in confusion. "Hide, go deeper into the cave." Rhaegar continued to convey his meaning in High Valyrian. "Hiss." The Grey Shadow whispered vigilantly, but his head scanned the surroundings, looking for a place to hide. Rhaegar was also searching, and found a climbable slope. Rhaegar waved to the Grey Shadow, bypassed the lava everywhere, and ran towards the slope. At this time, the glutton had already entered the cave, clasped its claws on the cliff, and descended step by step, like an evil beast teasing its prey. Cole was still in the cave, staring blankly at Rhaegar rushing into the cave to communicate with the young dragon. He took a step forward. Snap! A large lump of lava fell from the sky and hit him directly. Seeing the red lava flashing across his eyes, the hair on Cole's forehead was instantly scorched, and a burning sensation hit his face. At the critical moment, his survival instinct saved him. Cole exerted his strength with his legs and jumped backwards, narrowly avoiding the splash of magma after it landed on the ground. He fell to the ground, and the dragon guard behind him quickly stepped forward and helped him up. Sir, let's go first." "Yes, the prince has put himself in danger. It is more important for us to go back and find someone." Several dragon guards tried to persuade him, but they wanted to run away. Cole swung his sword fiercely and growled with red eyes, "You can leave if you are afraid of death. If something happens to the prince, none of you will be able to escape." Second update today.